So this morning, as we gather here at Emmanuel Church, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to talk today about Camp Wright. Camp Wright, the wonderful camp of the Diocese of Easton. Several months ago, a dedicated member of Emmanuel Parish suggested to me that I talk sometime about Camp Wright, because not everyone knows much about it. Let me say that I consider Camp Wright to be my own spiritual home. When I go on the grounds of Camp Wright, I am at the deepest part of my spirituality. It is the place that I love from the very bottom of my heart. It is a place where many young people have found the call of God to serve God in Christian service in their communities. It is also the place where many lifetime relationships have been born. It is a place that I came to know for the first time 78 years ago, when I was the age of 11. So what is so important to the people of Emmanuel Church about Camp Wright? So what possible good for Emmanuel Church could come to this parish and others here on the Eastern Shore? Camp Wright is the place where many children gather every Sunday, every summer, to follow the ways of the Camp Wright plaque that says, learning to live together in Christian community. Several weeks ago, I had the privilege of conducting the Sunday morning service on the last day of the first summer session. It was an overwhelming experience for me, with 100 campers present, 20 or so counselors, and many parents of the campers. The singing, led by 3 leaders, was uplifting, and the line of young people lining up to receive communion or to receive a blessing touched my heart deeply. Also, my dialogue with the campers brought out the joy in their hearts as they stated how much they loved about the camp. Camp Wright, of course, is on Kent Island. That's where, by the way, that's where Mark was the rector of the church there at Camp Wright, who's been a wonderful person serving so much time here, his last Sunday being last Sunday. And Camp Wright has been in operation since 1930. Camp Wright property was given by a man by the name of DeCourcy Tom. He was a vestry member of Old Wide Church. He also lived in Baltimore for periods of time. DeCourcy gave farmland that was right on the banks of the Chesapeake Bay, 2 miles south now of the Bay Bridge. DeCourcy Tom loved his church, and he loved children. And he wanted children to come to Camp Wright from the 3 dioceses in the state of Maryland. The ownership of the camp is the diocese, excuse me, is the Diocese of Easton, but he wanted children from all 3 dioceses to come there in the summertime. What is important about Camp Wright to the Episcopal Church is that often young people are deeply touched in their hearts, and some have been called to the ordained ministry. Among some of the people called to the priesthood in recent years are the new rector of Berlin Parish in the southern part of this diocese, the interim rector of Y Parish, who spent her time here at Emmanuel Church and was ordained a priest here at Emmanuel Church not too long ago, under the tutelage of Claire. Charlotte Meyer, her Camp Wright name is Peaches, by the way, and also the Assistant Dean of Trinity Cathedral. Also a man by the name of Hamill Wright, who died last year, came out of the Diocese of Easton and served in the Diocese of Easton and the Diocese of Delaware, and he was my camp counselor when I was 11 years old. And we also have clergy, the Diocese of Vermont and Washington, who came out of Camp Wright. Our former rector, Claire, attended Camp Wright, she and her sister. And her father, who of course was a priest, came to Camp Wright sometimes and served as a chaplain during the summer. David Lamott, Richard Lamott's father, of course, was also a chaplain at Camp Wright. The new rector at St. Paul's Centerville is also a former Camp Wright camper. And the new rector at St. Paul's Kent said in his acceptance letter that a church camp was a great influence in his life and his call to the priesthood. Not Camp Wright, but other church camp. The point that I'm trying to make this morning in this sermon is that church camps are often a great influence in the lives of many clergy. During the time between 1948 and 1959, I attended Camp Wright every year. I was a camper for 3 years, a couple of years as a counselor, and following that, I served the remaining years as a full summer helper, the remaining years until I started attending Virginia Theological Seminary. During the years between 1930 and 1963, Camp Wright had girls' camp in July and boys' camp in August. Then Camp Wright was closed for 2 years due to various problems, including some dynamite being put out when they were ditching and they didn't mark where that was. Bishop Alan Miller, announced at the Dawson Convention that he wished to sell Camp Wright. In 1965, I was called to be the rector of Christ Church, Denton. And Bishop Miller changed his mind a little bit and asked me to make plans to open camp at least for a couple of years. He said, maybe I'll sell it after that. I said yes about reopening Camp Wright, and under my breath I said, no, you're not going to close it. I agreed to do that, and we began to work on reopening Camp Wright in 1966. I asked the Camp Wright Committee, which included Anne McLean, the person who read our lessons' mother. She was a member of the Camp Wright board at the time, that we make 3 significant changes at Camp Wright. One change was to co-ed Camp Wright. Not separate girls and boys camps, but one camp all summer with boys and girls together. 2, that the camp become integrated. All God's children would be welcome there. And 3, that a swimming pool be built so that the sea nettles would no longer bother the campers with their stings. The committee agreed, and we marched forward. Thanks to Paul Phillips of St. Andrews in Sundersville and many other people, money was raised to help us to move forward. Those early years of reopening in the middle 60s had small attendance, but each year we had a larger one and larger one and larger one. And by the early 70s, we began to fill up the camp during the summer. I want to again thank Emmanuel Church for allowing me to spend the summers at Camp Wright after I became the rector of this parish in 1968 and served until 1972. A couple of supply priests would come in and help during the summer here while I was away. I'm the last priest to serve as the Camp Wright director. The people who have followed me as directors are well-trained camp people, and the camp has benefited greatly with their great expertise. The present director, Julia Connolly-Zahn, recently served, listen to this, recently served as the national president of the Episcopal Church camps nationally, recognizing her wonderful abilities. I also want to recognize the new chair of the Camp Wright Committee. He sits there in the back of this building, this church building right now in our parish. Vic Evans, who sits there helping keep the things moving along so that communications here in the parish Sunday mornings. Vic is a very dedicated person to Camp Wright and spends much volunteer time in this work. Camp Wright now has one of the largest summer programs in the entire Episcopal Church. We may have a small diocese, but we have one of the largest camps, summer programs in all of the Episcopal Church. Camp Wright has their traditional resident camp, and now, in addition to that, they have added in the late 90s to have a day camp that is helpful to families in the local area where they can have their child come while they are working. Campers now fill 1,200 slots in the summer. And when the registration opens in November, some of the sessions are filled up in one day. Over the last several years, with clergy shortage, I have been able to move around from time to time to fill in when needed in various parishes. I have enjoyed seeing many of our Camp Wright alumni. Some of them are wonderful old friends, and all of them are good servants of the Lord, doing God's work. We are proud of them. Camp Wright has touched many people. And Camp Wright now looks forward 4 years from now to celebrate its 100th anniversary. We thank God for allowing us to continue to work as a wonderful camp on the banks of the Chesapeake Bay. I thank you for this opportunity to talk about Camp Wright. And I assure you, when I give my sermons, a couple in the month of August, they will be more traditional. But I thought it was important today to tell you about the wonderful camp in this diocese. We know only about 25 to 30% of the people in the Diocese of Easton really know much about Camp Wright. So it's important for us to get the message around. Thank you. Amen.